Okay, so the Challenge Cup final has ended between Warrington Wolves and Hull KR. 8-6 to Hull KR in dreadful conditions at Wembley. Very low scoring final. Scrappy arm wrestle of a final. Not the most entertaining. I mean, when Lee Leopards won, that was an entertaining final. When Catalan Dragons won, that was an entertaining final. I'm just using finals from previous years which I've watched and enjoyed. Even if they were scrappy, they were very entertaining because they were open and you just didn't know who was going to win. Warrington have fluffed this one from a winning position. They had opportunities to take points, most likely field goals, when they had Hull under a lot of pressure in the second half of all the repeat sets. Just take a field goal. In conditions like this, it would take something magical for Hull to win the game, which is what's happened. That last 3 minutes is magical. Now, Warrington have a try disallowed on 10 minutes. 3-man tackle, don't need to strip the ball. They strip the ball. They're driving him backwards. That would have been a goal line dropout. That eases the pressure on Hull KR. It was a bit of an arm wrestle, pretty even arm wrestle in the first 25, 26 minutes, which results in eventually Mickey Lewis slotting the penalty on 26 minutes. And that penalty kick has proven so crucial to the final score because it's finished 8-6. Not long after that, the heavens well and truly open. And you're thinking, if the first points are a penalty, it's going to be a low-scoring, scrappy arm wrestle of a game. Now, Warrington, I think, were the better side for 77 minutes in regards to territory, mistakes, penalties. Now, Josh Thewlish's try on the stroke of half-time, there's a little bit of luck with the kick from Mark Sneed, and Sneed had a very, very good game. I will admit that. Mark Sneed, his kicking game was very, very good today. George Williams, quiet. And that was disappointing, I think, from a Warrington standpoint, is George Williams was a bit quiet and a bit subdued, and I think that's contributed to the defeat a little bit. Marks needed the majority of the kicking. He kicked very well. The Thewlis tries to grab a kick. It deflects up in the air, right into Thewlis's arms. He scores in the corner. Sneed converts, and that is on the stroke of half-time. And that was a big momentum swing. Because at that point, Warrington was slightly edging it, I felt, in very challenging conditions. Hull at that point, their kicking game was poor. However, Mickey Lewis, that dropout in the second half, where they get the ball back, they were under a lot of pressure at this point. So the second half, it's Warrington are controlled. They've got Hull, for the most part, on their goal line. Repeat set. They can't get out. Goal line dropouts, but Mickey Lewis has thumped a couple of long goal line dropouts, and one of them absolutely brilliant, 60, 65 metres, maybe 70 metre goal line dropout. He's thumped that, good and proper. They can't keep it in. They regain possession, but then there was a lot of knock-ons. The defence of both sides was physical. Second half was a bit more brutal than the first. You could see Hull were chasing the clock a little bit because they're behind. May, as the game wears on, he gets a little bit more involved, but Hull had opportunities in attack to get through the line, maybe kick a bit earlier, pass a bit earlier, and they couldn't get through that Warrington defence. And they're butchering a few opportunities. They had a few line breaks, but for the most part, Warrington are grinding them down at the other end. They get 4 or 5 repeat sets in a row, but instead of kicking to compete for tries, they're kicking just to pin Warrington in their in-goal area. Maybe a few more grubbers there. But Mark Sneed was very accurate with his kicking. George Williams didn't have his best game. Very quiet. Didn't take up responsibility with the kicking as much as I think he could have. I think he could have kicked a bit more. Got involved with some running from dummy half, because he's quite good at that. Running up the line a bit more. Bit subdued. But because they're not taking the opportunity of field goals. And there was one kick which Mark Sneed kicks the corner where you think, just take a snap field goal, because he's got a wicked left foot. In fact, he can kick with the right foot. And he's shaping for a field goal, then he kicks it to the corner. And that's near around 70, 75 minutes. The rain is coming down at this point. Hull get the ball back. They get down the other end. They get a penalty for a high shot. The following set, on tackle 3, May kicks a grubber through. It's a bit of a scramble for the ball. And the Warrington defender just air swings at it with his hands. Peter Hick, who's in attendance, and then Tom Davis is the player who's following up the kick like all outside backs do. He touches it down. And it's a bit of a scramble, bit similar to Josh Thewlis's try. There's a lot of luck involved with deflections and players just being out of position because of said deflections. But also Peter Hickey putting pressure. I can't remember who was the Warrington defender. I think it might have been Thewlis. Because Peter Hickey was there putting pressure on the defender, makes it a bit of a more of a nervy moment. Now, Mickey Lewis has got a tough kick in tough conditions. He slots it. Now, there's 3 minutes left. And, yeah, Roderick Ty gets driven into touch. And, that last 3 minutes, you're thinking 77 minutes gone. Warrington have them under a lot of pressure. When Hull have got down the other end, they've not completed their sets very well. Their end of sets were poor up until that point. They get one end of set right, and it pays off. But it shows how crucial that early penalty they took in the first half was. Takeouts from the game. I think the referee had a good game. I think both captains' challenges were poor captains' challenges, although there were other instances where they should have challenged and they didn't. The attendance, and this is the big concern for me, especially with what the NRL may or may not plan to do should they take over buy a stake in Super League. That is a shocking attendance. And back in 2018 when Catalan won, a lot of people said, the attendance was crap because Catalan were playing. We can no longer use that excuse as rugby league fans and just sports fans in general for the amount of empty seats and half the top tier completely empty and not a single tier being fully sold out. Either end, there were empty seats all over the place. The TV crews have tried to hide the half-empty upper tier, where one side of it is completely empty. We can no longer use the excuse, Catalan were playing in the final. Hull KR have got a massive fan base for Hull. Warrington are a big club. These are two big clubs in the Super League with big fan bases. We can no longer use the excuse of 2018. Because since 2018, every final has had poor attendance. The attendances are lower now than just post-World War II. We are seeing the lowest attendances since World War II. And prior to 2018, the attendances were always fantastic. It's since 2018 that the attendances have been poor. Now, 2018, Catalan, people said Catalan playing in the final, that's why the attendance is poor. Their previous appearance in the final was a sellout, so I don't buy that as an excuse back in 2018. But the RFL needs to look at hosting the Challenge Cup final at Wembley. If they want to keep hosting it in London, there are other stadiums that are smaller in size that are also suitable as venues. I felt when the Rugby League World Cup was on, the Emirates was a good stadium they used, especially for the semi-final. That was sold out. That is a smaller stadium. They've used Tottenham's new stadium. They couldn't even sell that out a while ago. There are other slightly smaller stadiums that are suitable for a Rugby League final in London if they want to keep using London with smaller capacities. You've got the London Stadium where West Ham play. That's an even smaller capacity than the Emirates. Perfectly multifunctional, multi-use stadium. It's been used for rugby before, admittedly Rugby Union. Never been any attendance issues there. So I don't know what's going on here. Now, if you want to take the Challenge Cup final on the road, so be it, but that is really concerning for me. Now, okay, the final wasn't the best game of rugby league I've ever seen. The fans that did show up, fair play to them. The atmosphere was really good, but it is concerning that for the last 7 years, the Challenge Cup final hasn't sold out. They haven't filled Wembley, whereas pre-2018, we're getting sellouts. So something's happened. Now, yes, we've had economic downturn, we've had COVID, we've got a cost of living crisis. We need to look at the price of tickets. We need to look at not only having the fans from the two clubs in the final, but fans from every Super League, Championship and League One club and amateur clubs getting ticket allocations as well. I think that might go a long way to helping. But that was worrying for me. The commentary. I'm going to leave this with the commentary. Brian Noble and Jonathan Davis. Apparently they were saying this was a fantastic final. Oh my God. if I have to listen to Jonathan Davis in rugby union or rugby league on commentary ever again, I'm quite happy to put a cordless drill through my ears. I his day in commentary is done. There is a time to move on and get a fresh voice in there. Brian Noble, look, he's a legend of the game, coach and player. You know, he's coached at the highest level, he's won at the highest level. But again, the game has evolved and has passed him by. Like, that commentary today was grinding. I would have been much happier to watch it with no commentary, to be brutally honest. But it all said and told, that's the Challenge Cup final. Warrington had the game in the bag. As I say, they had opportunities when Hull KR were having to deal with repeat set after repeat set. Take that field goal. Field goals are not going out of fashion. If anything, I've seen more field goals in the last couple of years than in the previous, like the last 2-3 years, than in the previous 5. With the weather conditions as they were in a tight game, that field goal could have, again, swung some momentum. You're going to get the possession back from the resulting kickoff and get down the field again. So Warrington had opportunities on when Hull were on the back foot. Take the field goal. When penalties, take a kick. And they didn't. And I think that has cost them as well. But in saying that, Hull had a magic play right at the end. You know, they didn't give up. Their defence stuck in it. They weren't truly out of the game, but they stuck in the fight. And yeah, there was a bit of luck in there, and Warrington have choked it, in my opinion. They've blown from a winning position. And, it was a bit of a smash and grab. But at the same time, Hull took their penalty when they had the opportunity. And they took their opportunity right at the end because they finally got a 6-tackle play right, where they hadn't done in previous sets. The last couple of sets Hull had, they got their final play right, where they were maybe not doing it as well. Their kicking game wasn't as good, but in the crucial moment, they got it right. But there we go. That's the 2025 Challenge Cup final. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on the final in the comments section below. And how do we solve the attendance issue? Do we move it from Wembley? Do we move it from London? Do we take it on the road to a neutral venue? Do we play the Challenge Cup final at the end of the season like it used to be when it was a winter competition, not a summer competition? Because I do think that also impacts it as well, as it's like a third of the way through the season. You know, halfway through the season, should the Challenge Cup go in parallel with the regular season and be played at the end of the season like it used to be? How do we solve the attendance issue? But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below, and I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.